Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to discuss the classes of Diablo IV and how the new class-specific designs are breaking new ground while drawing on the design from past games. After playing around with some of these new class mechanics, I can say confidently that Diablo IV is gearing up to be one of the greatest games of our lifetimes. Now, Diablo has always had a history of being innovative. Diablo I was one of the first video games to establish the common video game character archetypes of warrior, sorcerer, and rogue, each class's abilities offsetting the other's weaknesses. Many games and even films still use this archetypal trio today. Of course, Diablo did draw inspiration from the legendary 1974 fantasy tabletop role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons, which first introduced class-based systems. Fast forward to Diablo IV, and one feature I'm most looking forward to is how each class has multiple unique class mechanics. For example, the Druid will be the only class that can loot spirit charms, which are items that can be presented as offerings that you can give to one of the 4 great animal spirits. We know that 3 of them are the snake, eagle, and wolf, and depending on which spirit you choose, it will empower you in a different way. Each spirit has a number of different boons to choose from, but you can only select one, and not all spirits will be available initially and need to be unlocked one by one. But once all are unlocked, you can choose freely from among the 4 spirits, selecting 1 boon from each spirit and 1 extra boon from a spirit of your choice once they're all unlocked. Now, depending on your playstyle, the best animal spirit to align with will change, and these animal spirits are located in Skazglen, which is the druid-like zone and outside of the scope of the Diablo IV beta, taking place exclusively in Fractured Peaks. So you won't be able to experience this during the beta, and we'll have to wait until the game launch for it. And if you're enjoying this video so far, make Lilith happy and like and subscribe. Now, this mechanic reminds me of how World of Warcraft really nailed it on class identity, giving class-specific quests such as earning and crafting your totems as a shaman, learning to tame a beast as a hunter, or brawling in a makeshift arena for Berserker's stance as a warrior. We also saw something similar with Final Fantasy XIV, with each class having its own job-specific quests. And it seems to me that in many ways, elements from MMORPGs are coming to Diablo IV, which is something that has never been done before and I believe has the potential to redefine the ARP genre for decades to come. But that's not the end of the druid-only mechanics. Druids also have a chance to deal crushing blows to enemies when using earth skills, which reduce the enemy's life by a flat percentage of their total health. Of course, this can be extremely powerful, and it appears that this effect will be reduced against bosses and other players. And another mechanic that isn't just for druids, but also barbarians, is Fortify. This causes them to take 30% decreased damage until the amount of fortified life is removed or it wears off. Now, Fortify is an interesting new mechanic that makes barbarians and druids some of the tankiest classes in the game because no other class has access to it, which really adds to the class fantasy of being a melee bruiser. I actually don't like how it has a maximum amount of damage it can reduce though. For example, a skilled player would use Fortify anticipating taking a lot of damage, but if Fortify will only reduce a set amount of damage, then you really aren't able to stretch the value of the ability by using it at the perfect time. However, this might mean players are more likely to just spam the ability to always keep it on cooldown and getting the most out of it instead, which may be more engaging than just saving a cooldown like you might do in another game. Now, since we already started talking about Barbarian already with Fortify, we know that the Barbarian only class mechanic is the Arsenal system, which allows him to hold up to 2 extra weapons automatically using the best weapon for the ability of your choice. Now, along with the Arsenal system, there is Expertise, which grants bonuses based on your expertise with each weapon type. There's also what's called a technique choice within the Arsenal system, but it was not usable in the latest build of the game. Now, looking at these 2 class-specific mechanics, we can see a theme: player choice. In both cases, the class mechanic allowed for extra customizability, the Druid spirit animal, and within it a number of boons to choose from, and with the Barbarian Arsenal, the choice of extra weapons, improving expertise for those weapons, and then selecting your technique. This appears to be a deliberate design by the Diablo IV team that I like because if I'm playing with a friend and we're both druids, we can play very differently based on the spirit animals we selected, the boons within them, and of course a ton of other customization that ultimately leads us to play differently, look for different items, and so on. And what I like about this is that Rod Ferguson, general manager of Diablo, has stated in an interview that early on you can easily change your skills and customization choices, but there becomes a point, which he chose level 50 arbitrarily, where it's no longer easy to change your choices and you're better off just making a new character. Now, this reminds me a lot of the Diablo 2 skill tree, It's not easy to reset, and you can only do it 3 times for each time you cleared the Den of Evil. Of course, later on you can get more chances to reset, but it's not easy to reset your skill tree. And I actually like this a lot. If you can reset your specializations and choices, then it makes them much less meaningful, and you put a lot less thought into them. But if it's difficult to reset skill points and other class-specific mechanics, players will be much more careful and thoughtful with their character builds. It almost guarantees players are going to re-roll their character once they realize they messed it up. I remember doing that in Diablo 2 as a kid, and honestly, it just made me respect the game so much more as being challenging. Now, if you look at the Book of the Dead, for example, the Necromancer's class mechanic, it allows for a number of different playstyles. If you want to command legions of skeletons, you can, or if you like the dark spellcaster theme without the summons, you can also customize your build like that. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Death Knight in Wrath of the Lich King. You can get a permanent ghoul if you go unholy, and you don't if you choose the other specializations. Now, the Book of the Dead lets you choose to have only a golem, or the biggest possible summon army possible, or the opposite, no summons at all. When I played, there was even a lot of customizability a layer deeper. For example, you could choose skeletons that are attackers, and they have less health and armor, but deal more damage, or you could choose the tank skeletons, which actually have shields and soak more damage. So there's even more customization after you make your initial choice of summons or no summons. Now, I would say the first part of this isn't anything new. Necromancers could already choose to not be a summoner, but customizing your summons is a cool new feature that I'm actually glad they added. Now, Sorcerer gets the enchantment system. This allows access to 3 extra skill slots called the enchantment slots. A spell placed into an enchantment slot becomes a passive skill. For example, Meteor will just periodically be cast on a random enemy nearby, or if you place Ball Lightning into an enchantment slot, it causes all crackling energy to instead become Ball Lightning, which sounds really powerful. This is an interesting take on a class-specific system because it allows you to effectively use 3 more abilities than other players, even if it's just a passive effect. Rogues are unique in that they can alternate between ranged weapons and melee weapons, freely using either type of skill, and their character will automatically start using the appropriate weapon. This already sounds like a fun mechanic to play with, and I can't wait to try it out. But that's not all. Rogues also need to choose to align themselves with one of 3 rogue guilds: Sisterhood of the Sightless Eye, the Mercenaries of Kyrgyzstan, or the Outlaw Smugglers of Hawazar. The aligning process involves a quest chain unique to each of the 3 factions, and each rogue guild provides its own unique benefits to the rogue. Now, this is just amazing. It's a fun rogue fantasy, and since there are 3 different rogue guilds, I imagine you'll unlock all of them and then ultimately decide which one to stay with. Rogues are also the only class which can modify the damage type of their weapons to either cold, poison, or shadow. For example, rogues can lace their weapons with cursed oil, which causes them to deal shadow damage, or frost oils, which apply chill, leading up to a full freeze over time. This is a very strong additional class mechanic just for rogues. All right, moving on from each class's specific mechanic and system, each class also has access to different types of damage specific to their class. Now, for example, barbarians only deal physical damage, while a class like Druid has access to physical, lightning, and poison. Now, this is very meaningful back in Diablo 2 because monsters could have immunes and take extremely reduced damage to a type of damage. I'm hoping to see this return in Diablo 4, encouraging players to go a build with a diverse range of damage types, and it also means that certain classes can farm certain areas better than others, depending on what monsters are immune to there. I think this really adds a lot of depth to the game, and I really can't wait to see if they end up implementing it. From what we know, and I'm sure there's a lot we still don't know, Diablo 4's classes are looking fun, unique, and compelling enough that you'd want to play all of them at least once. There's a lot of systems and mechanics that have never been done before coming to Diablo 4, and some that are definitely coming from MMORPGs, but personally, I can't wait to give it a try. Let me know in the comments what class you are going to play, and if you liked this video, you might like this video shown on the screen. I'll see you there.